Welcome back to another What I Watched in the Last Month video, and this is for the month of January 2022. I have a lot of new films to talk about, some TV shows, and a few old random fun films to mention. Go ahead and comment down below and tell me what is the best thing you saw so far this month. Also in the description, I do link everything and timestamp all the different movies and TV shows that I mentioned, so if you're looking to go right into a specific topic, then the description has everything you need. So the first film I just had to start off with is Scream. Scream 2022, Scream 5, whatever you want to call it. We did go watch it in theaters, and by the way, this month we saw a good amount of movies in theaters, and that's because we joined AMC Stubs. And pro tip, if you sign up, their first month is 99 cents, and you can watch up to 12 movies. Not that there is even a possibility that we could have pulled off watching 12 movies or that there was even 12 worthy movies to watch, but it's a good deal. So Scream is the Wes Craven dedicated film. He did pass away in 2015, so this was kind of dedicated to him and an ode to him. It's probably better if you are someone who has seen the films, because then you're gonna pick up on like all the little things that you might not know about if you haven't seen the films. I've only seen the first Scream, so maybe I did feel a little disconnection there. I did plan to watch all the Screams beforehand, but they cost money. Like, there's nowhere to watch them for free, and then you would have to spend whatever, $4 on every single film if I were to go on Amazon Prime. So I just was like, whatever, I've seen the first one, it's fine. It's probably like it's gonna be like a standalone film. And yeah, I think you can still pull it off and have a good time. I still enjoyed it, but I will say I think you would have a better time if you have more knowledge of... This one does bring back Sydney, Gale, and Dewey, who return from the previous Scream films. And again, I remembered them from the first film, but it wasn't like I had a deep connection or much of a awareness of their character arcs and all that. I will say I went into it thinking they were gonna do something completely different and just change the whole game. And it really is exactly what the Scream films have always been. There's nothing completely unique or different. It's always been very much meta, where everything in the film is talking about its own self and making fun of itself. Like, the killer is always one of the main characters in the film. That's just how it is. Like, the group of friends, it's always gonna be one of them or two of them, or, you know, that's just the way it works. So this one didn't really do anything totally out of the box. It really was trying to stick to the Scream formula, if that makes sense. I do think it was worth watching in theaters. I think it made it more of a fun experience. If you like slashers and horror films, and if you have any appreciation for the first Scream, you probably will like it. So that's pretty much all I can say about that. So next, I wanted to mention West Side Story. That's another one of the films we saw this month in theaters, and it is a 2021 musical romance directed by Steven Spielberg. It is the exact remake of the original West Side Story, which is actually on YouTube right now for free, in case you want to watch it, because I ended up watching it afterwards so I could like compare and contrast the new film to the old film. And I had seen it before, but it had been such a long time. But I do think it was worth the theater experience again. For a film like West Side Story that really didn't need to be remade, I think they did a great job. I mean, just for the fact that it really didn't need to happen. The movie was perfect already. They just went and, like, dare I say, made it better? I guess the quality's better. I liked the actors perhaps more, but I know that's arguable, and someone could say like the classics are the best, and I do think they did a great job sticking to the movie. They didn't really change too much after watching it back and forth and seeing the two and comparing. They moved some things around. They might have changed the location of songs. Sometimes the positioning of songs and their choices of that was kind of odd, and like I found that to be maybe some strange choices in that sense, but like I think everything flowed pretty well. I think everyone who took on the roles and had really big shoes to fill did a pretty good job doing that. So I think it was great. The ending was definitely effective, and I think they did a really good job representing the emotional ending that this film had. The scenes of New York and the costumes and the dances and the singing, I thought it was all great. The next movie we saw in theaters is Nightmare Alley, and this is a 2021 crime thriller directed by Guillermo del Toro. If you know about him, he's directed movies like Pan's Labyrinth, Crimson Peak, The Orphanage. I went into this film expecting a horror because it was directed by Guillermo del Toro, so I thought it's gonna be spooky. It's called Nightmare Alley. I did not look up the description. I did not look at the trailers. I walked into this movie blind. I kind of wish I had done some research because it would have given me a little bit of a clue as to what to expect instead of being completely blindsided. I spent the whole movie like waiting for it to get into I thought it was gonna be a horror. I don't know. My bad. It has Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Rooney Mara, Toni Collette, William Dafoe, amazing actors, fantastic acting, great cinematography, but a little slow. I'm not gonna get into the plot, but it is set in a circus, kind of like a freak show, and then it does kind of transport later on to something else. If you've ever seen the film The Prestige, this film has an air of that in it. Like it kind of reminded me of that film. If you like movies about magic and tricks and circus acts and freak shows and stuff like that, I think you could enjoy this film. I will say I think The Prestige is better. I liked the film. I still had a good time. It felt a little too long. But I will say the last like 5 minutes of the film really brings it all back around and made it so much more worth it, if that makes any sense. Plus I love Bradley Cooper's face, so. The next film is Last Night in Soho, and this is a 2021 film that we did end up renting in the Redbox. It is a horror drama directed by Edgar Wright. He's known for Scott Pilgrim, Shaun of the Dead, Baby Driver. This film is kind of like totally different than any of those. It features Anna Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie. So the main character in the film, through her dreams, is able to transport to the late 1960s London era. And she gets a connection with a specific girl, and I have to say my favorite part of the whole film was just the aesthetic of seeing 1960s London and fashion and everything about that era. Very beautiful film. I thought the plot and story was pretty good. It did keep my attention the whole time, and it did not feel like too long or anything like that. It did not blow me away though. I still think it was worth a watch, and I still did enjoy the journey of the film. Next we have Spencer, and this is a 2021 drama historical film that is also available now to rent in Redbox. It has Kristen Stewart, who plays Princess Diana, and I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna go right into saying it. This was the most boring film I've seen in a long time. I could not. Visually stunning, and Kristen Stewart did an amazing job as Princess Diana. She did not give me Kristen Stewart. She gave me someone else, Princess Diana. And I saw that. I give her credit for that. But I just thought that the film was so slow and boring. And maybe personally, I'm just not super intrigued or fascinated by the life of Princess Diana. So maybe there's a bias there, I don't know. But I thought it was so boring. And it's kind of sad, very much about how miserable she was during that time of her life and how unhappy she was, and I didn't really understand what I was getting out of this film. Not for me, but comment down below and let me know if you loved Spencer. I would love to hear your thoughts. Next we have The French Dispatch, and this is the 2021 romance comedy that is also available on Redbox right now, and directed by Wes Anderson, who has directed some really great films like The Grand Budapest Hotel, Moonrise Kingdom. One of my personal favorites is Rushmore, and this movie would have to fall at the bottom of the list when it comes to Wes Anderson films. I could not with this film either. It's not for me. If you've seen Wes Anderson films and his quirky style, there's very much that. The narration is very quick and very witty and fast-paced, and you have to keep up, like everything's happening very fast, and there's 3 stories. The first story was my favorite part, and then it just got boring. I don't know, it lost me. I had no idea what was going on in the second story. Like, if you're not paying close attention, you will lose track of what's happening, and it wasn't even interesting. I don't know, I didn't I didn't like it. And I really wanted to like this film. It had so many amazing actors. It has Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Timothy Chalamet, Frances McDormand, Benicio del Toro, William Dafoe, like so many good people that I was just kind of like, how did that many people get in this film? And like, I don't know. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought. Next up we have Antlers, and this is a 2021 horror mystery that is also available in Redbox to rent, and is directed by Scott Cooper and produced by Guillermo del Toro. This is a film that is very slow, spooky, and sad. This is a film that has a lot of symbolism. The film has a lot to do with a monster, but the monster is also representing something like centered around child abuse and trauma. And I think once I understood that about the film, I liked it more. I did kind of have to like look up afterwards more about it to understand exactly what everything was trying to represent, because like sometimes those things go over my head as I'm watching a film. I don't always sit there and like try to evaluate like the symbolism. I'm sometimes just watching a film as it is without thinking that deep into it. It had a lot to do with mythology, which I thought was also very interesting, and it can get pretty gruesome. I will say the child actor for this film was amazing. Now going into something a little bit more lighthearted, we have The Hating Game, and this is a 2021 romance comedy. And the only reason I saw this film was because someone left a comment on my last video saying that they thought that this was the best film they saw in 2021. So I was curious. I paid $6 on Amazon Prime to watch this film, and now it's $4. So for some reason it changed from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. But it is based on a book by Sally Thorne. It features Lucy Hall and Austin Stowell. I was not obsessed with this film, but I also enjoyed it. I thought it was cute. The two main characters work together in the office, and they kind of like can't stand each other, but they also like are in love with each other. It's one of those things. And I wasn't like obsessed with the story. I found myself amused and entertained, and somewhere in me I enjoyed it, but another part of me was like lame. Like, I don't know, I'm not good with rom-coms. It's just not my thing. But I think if you like romantic comedies, you'll probably enjoy it. Next we saw all the Harry Potter films, which has been something I've been wanting to do for so long. I've been talking about how I've been wanting to watch every single film in order for a very long time, and it finally happened. And I will say the only reason this came to be, HBO Max came out with the Harry Potter Return to Hogwarts 20th anniversary. My boyfriend and I decided we had to watch all the films, and it finally happened. We committed and we got through it, and it was such a fun ride. Like, highly recommend, if you have not tried to watch all the Harry Potter films in order, just give it a week and watch 1 or 2 every night. It's worth it. It's such a good time. When the first film came out in theaters in 2001, I was 11. All the kids in the movie were also around that age. So every time the new movies would come out and I would go watch them in theaters, I was growing up alongside them, and now they're all like roughly in their 30s like I am. There's just something special to me about knowing that I grew up watching these films, and now we can all reflect back on them. It's been 20 years, and I don't know. I loved it. It was a great experience. Highly recommend watching all the films in order. Speaking of watching a bunch of films in order, we decided to also do the same thing with Spider-Man. And we watched all the Spider-Mans. And that was fun. I will say, after watching the Spider-Man film in theaters, we were like, okay, well, yeah, let's do it. Let's start from the first 3 with Tobey Maguire, and then, which personally are my favorites, and then go into the Andrew Garfield, which is only 2, and then go into the Tom Holland films, and just kind of spend a week watching Spider-Man films. And I will say that was a fun journey of its own. I will always forever believe that Tobey Maguire was the best Spider-Man. Mind you, again, I had a connection to those first 3 Spider-Man films because they came out when I was younger, and that was the first Spider-Man to me. When I looked back at it today, I realized it holds up, and it's still, to me, better than any of the Spider-Man films of today. I think the first 3 films had so much more of a comic book feel to them. They're so bright and colorful, and everyone feels kind of like cartoon-like almost. Mary Jane's red hair, it's just very everything is very animated feeling. And then you get to the Andrew Garfield ones and it's like everything is gray and dark and heavy. The second film ends so sadly, and I just was not at all into the Andrew Garfield ones. I think Andrew Garfield is adorable. He's probably the best looking Spider-Man, but that doesn't change the fact that the films he was in were just And then the problem for me with the Tom Holland Spider-Man films is that you need to be a fan of the Marvel films in general. You need to be keeping up with the Avengers and what happens in those films, because they're kind of in between the Spider-Man films, and if you didn't know what happened in the, I don't know. The first one was fine, I kind of understood what was going on, but then the second one begins and I'm like, wait, did I miss a film? I'm not a huge Avengers fan, don't really care that much about the Avengers, and then I was like, oh wow, how weird, like the Spider-Man films are so connected to those. I didn't even realize that if you don't watch those films, you can't really understand what's, I don't know, I just don't like that part about it. So now let's go on to some TV shows that we've been watching. I'll start off with Cobra Kai. I love Cobra Kai. I think that's one of the funnest shows. It's on Netflix. They're on season 5 right now. Everything about Daniel and Johnny and the kids and like the karate, and like for someone who's not even like a huge Karate Kid fan, I was never like obsessed with the Karate Kid films or anything like that. But watching Cobra Kai is just, it's a fun time. Next we have Euphoria, and this is a totally different style of a show. It is on HBO Max and they're on season 2 right now. It's another teen drama style show, except add a lot of drugs and trippiness and very interesting aesthetics and characters that are very messed up, but it's awesome. If you were ever a fan of Degrassi, imagine just taking that show and putting it on like an acid trip. And that is what Euphoria is. It is an interesting show. There's definitely the heavy topics of sex and alcohol and drug abuse and addictions and physical abuse, and it touches all the hard topics. It does it in a way that sometimes is almost beautiful. I don't know. Just let me know if you're a fan of Euphoria, because I think it is such a fun show. Next we have the Righteous Gemstones, and this is also on HBO Max, and they're also on season 2. But this is a dark comedy that features Danny McBride and John Goodman. And this show is just, it's ridiculous. The girl who plays Judy, I believe her name is Eddie Patterson. She is so funny, and she's my favorite character in the show. Maybe you can look up what the show is kind of making fun of and what it's all about, but I think it's hilarious, and I don't think it's probably for everyone, so you might want to like double check before you watch it, but we think it's a fun watch, so. And then one more show I've been watching is called Servant, and this is a thriller that is currently on season 3, and it's on Apple TV. And by the way, it features Rupert Grant, so you get to watch Ron be in a more dramatic adult role. It's definitely a psychological horror. It has elements of supernatural and also really sad life traumatic events that happen. Again, I'd rather not go into the plot. I think if you're interested at all, you should check out what it's about, because it does have some heavy, plot points, and again, I don't know if it's for everyone, but if you like psychological horrors and thrillers and spooky things, you'll probably like it. I think it's really well done, and season 3 so far has continued to remain very interesting. So now for some older films that we watched this month. After watching Scream, we kind of wanted to watch some Wes Craven films in dedication to him. So we decided to check out Red Eye, which is a Wes Craven film from 2005. It is a thriller mystery featuring Rachel McAdams and I forgot the dude's name, hold on. Cillian Murphy. I think I had seen it a long time ago, back when it first came out, but I had just forgotten about it. So rewatching it, it holds up. A lot of tension. I love that a big portion of the film takes place on an airplane, which gives me a lot of anxiety. You know, whenever you're watching a horror film and the female character just makes really poor choices and you're really frustrated the whole time because they keep making stupid decisions. Rachel McAdams is not that character in this film. She was actually smart and effective, and I love that about this film. So I think Red Eye is great. It has a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think most people agree it is a very good thriller. Now the next one we saw is called Cursed, another Wes Craven film that is from 2004, and it's a horror comedy that is currently on HBO Max. It is a horror comedy about werewolves, so it's a totally different feel. It has Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg, and it is just a silly, fun time. Except if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 16%, which I think is really messed up because I think it was a fun film. I don't think it was supposed to be taken seriously. The werewolf transformation and all that aren't great, but it's a horror comedy. It is very early 2000s vibes. I thought it was a fun time. I don't know, I would have given it like a 60 something at least. Another horror film we saw this month is called The Night House, and this is actually a 2020 horror thriller. It's not free anywhere, so we did have to pay, I believe, like $6 on Amazon Prime, which I hate doing. It did get an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I was like, oh, it should be worth it. It stars Rebecca Hall. Her husband in the film unalives himself, and then a lot of stuff starts happening in the house, and it's kind of spooky and confusing. Like, you don't really know what's going on the whole time. You're not sure if it's one of those movies where you're like, is it all in her head, or is it actually supernatural, or is it ghosts, or is it demons, or is it, you just don't know what's going on. I think if it would have been free on like Netflix or something, I wouldn't have complained, but because I paid $6, I don't know if it was like worth it, you know? So the next film is pretty random. It's called But I'm a Cheerleader. And this is a 1999 romance comedy satire that is free on YouTube right now. I went into this film, again, not knowing anything. It's like a late 1990s cheerleader film. Like, that should be fun. And actually, I do think this movie was fun, but it's totally different than what I expected. It is definitely satire. It's about a girl who her parents send her to a boot camp so that she could stop being gay. I had no idea that the whole premise was about this like ridiculous boot camp to help people not be gay. Again, it's a satire. They did a good job with that. I actually really liked it in the end. I thought it was worth a watch. Next we have The Wedding Singer, and this is currently on Netflix. It is a 1998 romance comedy with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, and I know it is a classic, and I had actually never seen it, so I thought, let me check it out. The Wedding Singer on Netflix. Kind of a dumb movie and kind of uneventful and not a great love story. Tell me I'm wrong, but I just didn't care for it. I was like, this movie is like you cannot compare that movie to 50 First Dates. 50 First Dates was a good love story. This is barely a romance film, and comedy is not my favorite Adam Sandler film, that's for sure. Next we have Drop Dead Gorgeous, and this is a 1999 dark comedy that is on HBO Max right now. And this one is super interesting. It is like a documentary style film that is about a beauty pageant that is being held in a small town in Minnesota. Everyone has that very dramatic Minnesota accent, and it is hilarious. It has Kristen Dunst, Amy Adams, Denise Richards, Brittany Murphy, Kirstie Alley. I thought it was such a clever, silly idea for a film, like where they keep interviewing all the girls and they're all saying ridiculous things, and the film itself is ridiculous. It's an easy, fun watch if you're looking for something that is just like a good time. Next we have Something Borrowed. This is a 2011 rom-com on Netflix featuring Jennifer Goodwin and Kate Hudson and John Krasinski. I have such an issue with this film. It's about a girl who is in love with her best friend's fiance, and they're about to get married, and the girl is still trying to be her best friend, and it's like, this film was so frustrating. It's one of those films where you're like not sure who you're rooting for anymore, and you're just like frustrated because everybody's making such stupid decisions, and like, I enjoyed it still because I actually got wrapped up in it enough to be bothered. So that's a good sign, but also like, stupid. Next we have Fear, and this is a 1996 thriller drama with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon, and it's currently free on HBO Max. Apparently I decided to watch a lot of like late 1990s films for some reason. This is about a violent sociopath who becomes very possessive of his new girlfriend, and then the movie kind of ends in like a home invasion style situation. It was good. That's all I'm saying. It's a good film. This next film is definitely the oddest ball in this list. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. Tread lightly. The movie's called Tangerine, and it is a 2015 drama comedy that is currently on Netflix. It is a small budget film that was filmed entirely on an iPhone, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna read the description of this film to give you an idea of what to expect. After hearing that her boyfriend slash pimp cheated on her while she was in jail, a sex worker and her best friend set out to find him and teach him and his new lover a lesson. It has to do with sex workers, pimps, transvestites. It's a very trashy film, but I have to say I still enjoyed it because it was so different, I guess. It was such a different experience of a film, but it's very low budget. The quality is okay. They're just being so crazy the whole time, and I don't know, this film was weird in a not the worst way, in like a very interesting, like that was an experience type of way. Next film is I Love You Man, and this is definitely a rewatch because I love this film. It is a 2009 comedy that is on Netflix right now that features Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. And Paul Rudd's character is searching for a best man for his wedding because he doesn't have like a best friend that's a guy, that he doesn't really have like a lot of guys in his life, so he's just looking for a guy friend. And this film is just so adorable, and I've seen it more than like 2 or 3 times by now. I think Paul and Jason have such a great chemistry in this film, and I think it was just, I just love it. And just wanted to throw it out there if you haven't seen it and you're looking for like a comfort, like a cozy comfort film that'll make you laugh. It's a good one. Last on this list is Guardians of the Galaxy, because why not? I had not seen this film since 2014 when it came out in theaters, and now it's on Disney Plus, so I thought, why not? I love Chris Pratt. I love the soundtrack. I am excited for the ride that's coming out in Disney, so the film only made me more excited, and it's a good time. Let me know in the comments if you watched any of the same films. Let me know any film recommendations you have, any TV shows I should check out. I love to hear about new things to watch, so please tell me. Is there anything you're looking forward to watching in February that's coming out? You can tell me that as well. Toodaloo.